Telling your story is an inclusive view of the people around us who share the same dreams and goals but face different challenges moving forward. We hope you come away from each show inspired. Keep watching for this episode of Telling Your Story with Terrell and Nick, coming up next. Hello and welcome to Telling Your Story with Terrell and Nick. We're so glad you tuned in to watch. I'm Nick.
And I'm Terrell.
And we are your co-hosts. We are super excited to introduce Scott Gerson, the Global Youth Engagement Specialist at Special Olympics. But he is also a community volunteer and a super cool guy with a pretty amazing story to tell. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you, Nick. I appreciate it. Thanks, Terrell.
Hi, Scott.
How's it going?
Doing well.
So, Scott, you and Terrell actually met many, many years ago. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, we met at Special Olympics track and field. The practices were at Good Counsel. And I just remember Terrell rolling in, his smiling face. And then I saw how fast he was, and I was blown away.
Wow.
Yes, what was your nickname?
Gazelle.
Terrell the Gazelle. Yep, so that really holds true, right?
Yes. Yeah, I remember when I was talking to Scott, and then they said time to go, and then I said see you later, and then when I got back, and then I kept on running, and I passed him.
Sounds right.
And then he said, "Wow, you're running faster, Al."
Yeah, sounds absolutely right.
But your paths crossed again in a professional setting, is that right?
Yes.
So you guys worked together
Yes.
at Special Olympics.
Yes,
That's awesome.
true.
But Scott, let's go further back than that. Where did your story begin?
Yeah, so I grew up in Kensington, Maryland, and I started participating in Special Olympics events, started participating in camps in Montgomery County. It started with a camp that I did at the Therapeutic Rec Department, and they had a summer camp that they let me volunteer at when I was in, I think, late elementary school, which feels too young, but it all went fine.
That's
so
great.
It's a good time.
Wow, that sounds great.
And you, as you got a little bit older, you became very interested and active in disability rights. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I think through Special Olympics and through the experience with the rec department, I started making friends, making acquaintances. People with disabilities just were always part of my life. And I think that over time I started to see that maybe there was some worse treatment of them or some different treatment, and I think that that's something that is really a common experience that people with disabilities have, and so obviously that can't go, and so we had to see. I think in lots of different contexts you can see how people with disabilities are treated differently, and as I've been moving from school to working life and then even out in the community, there really is a need for activism, I think.
How did you, go ahead, T.
So, I was thinking while you was talking, how do you think ID people do, like drive, if they drive, how do you think, how do they pay attention to the road and all that?
Yeah, so I think there are a lot of capabilities that everyone has, people with and without disabilities, but I think uniquely people with intellectual disabilities a lot of the time are denied the opportunity to show those abilities.
Right.
And so I think that they aren't given access to opportunities where those abilities and like being able to drive could really shine and where they could do that.
Right.
That's a
Okay.
great. That's an awesome question too. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's true.
Did you, Scott, when you were in high school, were there programs that sort of ignited that for you?
Yeah, so we had a bocce team, a unified bocce team through Special Olympics that I got to, well, I volunteered at first. I was an assistant coach, and then in state games, I got to play as a unified partner, and it was a good time. We ended up winning states, so that was
Oh, that's
super
great.
fun.
Wow.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
That's
it was a
wonderful. And what about your college experience? I know you went to Northwestern. Were there opportunities at Northwestern for you to continue your journey on becoming an advocate?
So there really weren't when I got there, which was a little disappointing because I was really hoping that I could continue working within the disability community. But I was able to find a group of students with disabilities who shared kind of my interests and a lot of similar aspects of my story. And so we came together, formed a student group called Beyond Compliance that really looked to, so the name compliance relates back to the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and trying to make buildings and programs accessible for people. And our goal was to really move beyond just being in legal compliance and really pushing towards tolerance, acceptance, and kind of radical inclusion for people with disabilities.
Okay.
That's great. Can you talk about what are some of the things that you did? That's really
Yeah.
inspiring. It would be awesome if other schools had similar
Yeah.
programs.
Yeah, so I know
Yeah,
that there
I
are
hope so.
definitely similar efforts coming in through kind of grassroots movements from students with disabilities around the country and around the world, really. But we had a couple of different things. There was a student panel that we had that I moderated that was comprised of 3 students with disabilities, really different kinds of people, but talking about some challenges they faced, some successes they had, and really some opportunities for the student body and the faculty at Northwestern to really support them a little better.
That's amazing.
Right.
That's wonderful.
Wow. That sounds good.
And it's a great point too, Scott, that having a grassroots movement can activate change. So that sort of passion to action idea that you were able to really move it and translate it into, well, it could be at some point policy if a university were to pick it up, or just the education of it.
Right.
Do you find, Terrell, that sometimes it's helpful to talk about disability rights?
It is right to talk about Special Olympics. Special Olympics is helping more rights and all that because athletes like me and other athletes don't, like you said, Scott, they don't make you do what you want to do, but they just assume stuff that they think disease is a sickness, and guess what?
What?
It is not a sickness
It
at
is
all.
not. Agreed.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're right, and I think it's great that Special Olympics and the program you did at Northwestern, and I'm sure other programs are starting to get this into the conversation. You know, I think that's part of it. We don't talk about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I think,
that's right.
I think when the efforts come kind of from the ground up, like organically, it really has a lot more power. I think it's more genuine to the needs of the people when it comes in that way.
Okay, can you talk about college, more about college?
Yeah. So when I went off to college, let's see, it was September of 2014. And I definitely, it was a time of change for me as a person, a lot
Sure.
in transition, leaving home for the first time.
Yeah.
So not only was I like figuring out how to take classes and all that, but I also had to learn how to do laundry.
Yeah. Life
so
skills.
really,
Yeah,
good.
that's a
Like,
big
lot
one.
of life
I know,
skills.
laundry.
Laundry.
And then I
Guess
guess,
what? I did laundry too.
there you go.
Okay.
It hits us all at some point.
We just got to do that laundry,
Yeah,
right?
that's
Got to
true.
do it.
Got to do it.
Absolutely. And yeah, so that was definitely an interesting time for me going off to college.
That's great.
Wow, that's good. Yeah, I remember this one time my brother stayed up late at night. Is that true? They want people to stay up late at night?
I've heard that can sometimes happen.
Wow.
Oh, that's great.
So
I love that.
This is what happened when I trying to go to sleep. I had to get up in the morning at 8 o'clock, and then he is done at work his homework at 12 o'clock, and then he says, "This is a little bit longer, Terrell. I'm almost done." And he passes time.
But really, you wanted to go to sleep.
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, I hear that.
That's right.
Scott, I know that you have done so many, you offer so many things to the community. Can you talk about the wide variety of groups that you're involved in?
For sure. So I think we're really lucky in Montgomery County because we do have so many groups, and we have such a thriving community, or number of communities, really. I would say the ones I'm most involved in, definitely Special Olympics. Outside of working for them, I also participate as a unified partner, as a coach. We also have, the Down Syndrome Network of Montgomery County I'm involved in. Art Stream puts on some great workshops, so that's always a lot of fun. And then I think I've gotten involved a lot also more informally, so just in friend groups with people with and without disabilities that really are definitely a big part of my life.
That's wonderful.
That sounds great.
Do you find that when you talk about friend groups, that inclusive friendship is something that is important to you?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's something that happened more organically when I was younger, so through the activities I was involved in. I met lots of different people, some people like me, some people very different, and I think that just through what I value and the things that I look for in people, I ended up with a friend group that really is very inclusive in all sorts of different ways, and I think that it's really helped open my eyes to the breadth of experiences that there are in the world.
Okay, Scott. So tell the audience. Do we have an audience around here?
Oh, we have thousands of viewers.
Okay.
Millions.
Okay.
Millions of
So
viewers.
tell the audience around here about how you found Special Olympics and somebody to take you in.
And so for the answer to that question, and we're going to hear all about the power and the beauty of an inclusive friendship right after this break. Don't go away, baby. We'll be right back.
Coming here and having a group like this where she just fits in perfectly, where we're accepted, we belong, we're the community.
It's just a chance for us to really coach these kids and challenge them, but at the same time motivate them, support them, and encourage them to be better soccer players.
My neighbor is actually one of the athletes who participates in this, and I was babysitting him and I was playing soccer with him, and his dad told me about this program, and I was like, oh my gosh, that sounds amazing.
Watching this inspirational group of athletes smile and have fun and get to shine as individuals has just been wonderful. As a parent of one of the buddies, it's been a real pleasure to come out here and see this develop. It's really changed her life. I mean, she's very happy, and she feels like she's a part of the team and very special.
And every single time I come, the athletes put a smile on my face.
Just being a coach, it's a blessing. You know what I mean? To help these kids and to be a part of their life.
The way you see the players interact with each other, interact with us, this is making a big difference in their life, and it's making a big difference in my life too.
Welcome back. T and I are chatting with Scott Gerson, the Global Youth Engagement Specialist at Special Olympics International. So Scott, right before the break, we had two burning questions. Terrell, do you want to start with the Special Olympics question?
Yes. How do you find out about Special Olympics? You know we have a website, and I think some people looking at the website and then see what job we have in the job, and then call people there. What do you do? What do you do?
I found out about Special Olympics way before I was looking for jobs.
Right.
When I was in end of elementary school, beginning of middle school, actually, I went with a friend to the tennis program that we had for Special Olympics Montgomery County.
Yes.
And I played there as a unified partner, and that's where I met my friend Al, who's my best friend today, and we've been playing tennis together ever since.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Wow, that's incredible. So,
Yeah.
so if we can touch on that, your friendship with Al, we talked about just the power of an inclusive friendship. Can you talk more about that, Scott? Because I'm not sure that that's something, again, that comes up a lot in conversation. I know you're one of my best friends.
Yes.
But I want you to just share a little bit about that friendship so that our viewers can understand that friendship.
For sure. So I met Al when he was participating as a Special Olympics athlete, and I was playing as a unified partner and as a volunteer. And I think that the friendship started with tennis, and we had that mutual activity and that mutual interest. And then from there, we started to see, oh, well, actually, we like the same movies, and we like to relate to people in the same way. And so it, over time, grew into a friendship outside of tennis, outside of Special Olympics. And I think that it didn't really matter that he's about 15 years older than me. He's had a much different life than I have, and I think that all kind of mattered less, especially when I was younger, because we had that common experience or that common interest. And then now, today, we have 15 years of friendship under our belt.
Wow.
Yeah.
What would you say to someone, Scott, who heard what you just said but then wasn't sure how to make friends with somebody? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I think if you have to try too hard, probably it's not a good friendship match. You want to be with people who you connect with naturally. And I think that it's important to look outside of the people who are readily available to you or who you might expect should be your friends, and really look more at people who you want to be your friends and people who you really kind of connect with and you feel like you're you're really feeling. Yeah.
Okay. Can you share can you share about work with athlete. Yes, athletes.
Yeah.
So you travel all over the world.
I do, yeah, it's a blast. So with Special Olympics, we really have a global reach. And so we're in nearly every country at this point. And so through my current role and in the past, I've gotten to travel around, work with different Special Olympics programs, but also meet Special Olympics athletes from all over.
Right.
Most recently, I got to go to the Special Olympics World Games in Abu Dhabi, which is in the United Arab Emirates. And that was
told me
in
that.
March of this year, and that was an awesome experience.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Is it different? So culturally, can you talk about the differences in perspectives in the ID community? Like, are there differences?
For sure. I think that a lot of it relates to kind of differences in the cultures in general, but something that I've seen to be a commonality throughout Special Olympics movements in these different countries is that they're all really focused on inclusion, and that's kind of the key concept that we're all fighting for, is because everyone really does deserve to be included.
Right.
And so when we went to Abu Dhabi and met with people with Emiratis, they were really all talking about how important it was for them in their countries and in their communities to have inclusion.
That is
That's
a big word to use.
Inclusion?
Yes.
Is it a word
Do
that...
you know what that means?
I do, yeah.
You
Yeah, I'm
do?
still figuring it out, but yeah.
Okay.
What do you think it means?
It means to make sure to don't push people away, just to bring people in. Did I say it right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah,
I
you nailed
said
it.
it right.
You know better
You
than I
kind
do.
of said it amazing, I thought. But yeah, I think that's huge. And I wonder, too, moving forward, that we are going on that path of inclusion. What would you say, Scott, to somebody who, since you started really a lot younger and creating these friendships and these experiences, what would you say to neurotypical kids?
Yeah, I think definitely going in with the right mindset. So rather than thinking, how can I give back and how can I give to these people, and rather, what are you really interested in and what are your values?
Right.
And so I think that having a good sense for who you are as a person and what matters to you helps to guide your action. And so for me, I was really, I cared a lot about inclusion, and I cared a lot about kind of being good to people, and so that informed the activities I was doing. But I think it's definitely a very individual thing that kids should figure out for themselves what matters to you, and then really go chase that.
What is the most, what do you think?
He's right.
He's right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What would you
Let's
say?
leave it like that.
Just leave it like that?
Yeah.
We're going to leave it like that.
Because he said it right.
Thanks,
I
Terrell.
can't say it any better. Scott, what's the best part of your job?
Oh, getting to hang out with Terrell for sure.
All right.
About twice a day, I get a knock on my door.
I love that.
That's gotta be it.
I normally say, good morning, Scott. What's going on, right?
Absolutely.
Is there a magic formula to landing in such a large place of happiness? I mean, how'd that work?
I think it was definitely a team effort. I think if I didn't have all of the great people in my life, I wouldn't be as happy. But I really feel lucky to have people like Terrell, people like you, Nick, that just fill me with warmth and make me feel good.
Thank you.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And you know, we talked about our very first show 3 years ago. Our topic was happiness.
Oh, the happiness.
Remember?
I remember that.
And how incredibly important that is on so many levels, especially now in this climate that we live in, and just trying to get to places like that. And you're such a great example of somebody who sort of followed his dream, followed that path, and have all of these friends in your life, and just like you.
Right.
And so just sharing that story with others is huge.
Yeah.
You know?
And I will also say I'm definitely not always happy, so I don't want to paint it like that by any means, but I think that I always am supported. And I think that's something that people in my life provide me.
That's incredible. So for you, working with Scott and doing things outside in the community with Scott, what would you tell people about making friends and having an inclusive friendship? What would you say? Aside from me being your best friend, I'm his first best friend. You could be the second best friend.
You claimed it.
Yes,
That's fine. I'll take
right?
this
Am
on
I
the
right?
level.
Yes,
Okay,
you got it.
so to
you
make sure
got
I'm
it.
right, because we're on TV and everything.
Yeah, you got it. We had to make it clear to everybody. Clear to everybody.
Clear.
Yes.
But what would you say about friendship?
Oh, yeah. I am saying if they ask about what I think, I say that be yourself. You have to be yourself first, and then look for friends. But if you don't look for friends, you will be lonely. And who wants to be lonely?
Nobody wants
Not
to
I.
be lonely. And you know what? I think you're absolutely right. And the more that we're ourselves, the more comfortable other people feel like they can be themselves in our space.
Yes.
Right? And that is inclusive. So just being able to feel accepted and accepting
Right.
of others. I
Very
mean, I
true.
think that's where those foundational points start in friendship.
Yep, you got it,
You
Nick.
know? Absolutely. So Scott, if you had to write a novel about your life, what would you call it?
I wanted to hear about that.
Oh, man, great question. Wow. I would call it bringing people in.
Oh, good
Yeah,
name.
because that's definitely what it's been. It's been a process, but I've been lucky enough that as I move through life, more and more people have entered than have left.
Right.
And so I think that that's where I've gotten to such a good place today, is because I have so many people that I've been able to bring in and who've really brought me into their lives.
That's a beautiful answer. Thank
you.
you
It's a
for
bestseller.
that. It's a
Bestseller.
Yeah, bestseller of the day.
Well,
Bestseller.
it's about, I have no doubt. And we are happy to be included in your circle as well.
Yeah.
And appreciate you taking the time to share your story, and I think inspire other people to be able to follow their path and live such an accepting life of others. I mean, it just brings, obviously, so much joy and happiness to you.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yes,
Absolutely,
you-
absolutely.
That's true.
Well, that is all the time
That
we
was
have.
good.
That is all the time we have today on Telling Your Story with Terrell and Nick. Thank you for joining us, and thank you again to Scott Gerson, who truly followed his dreams and is really making also other people's dreams come true every day. To learn more about Special Olympics, please visit www.specialolympics.org. And thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you for coming to everyone.
Yes.
But actually you.
And remember, wherever you are in your life,
Keep moving forward.
and cheers.
And cheers.